finish this thing? Yeah, we'll go for normal. Alright. So we're going to sit down. This is the panel of day 2. It's like version 2 will get. And alright, so my dear friend Jason Harris wasn't here yesterday when we had the panel. And so, but I think I told him a little bit what we were going to do. And yesterday we did what I call, what was it called? Late afternoon at Adler or something like that. So basically, based on this video from back in 2005, speaking at Adler, where among other things, my key was also there somewhere around. And so this is day 2, this is late afternoon at Adler. It's just like yesterday, but with some juicy bits. Oh yeah, show me the juicy. Sorry, he's about to come. So again, it probably sounds for you guys a little bit weird to see all those holiday pictures of us, but it's just like it's just again where it kind of all started. So this was Jason, me, and Ken. Who thinks this is Ken? Maybe it's Glen. Is it Ken or is it Glen? Who thinks this is Ken? The resolution is too low. That's like the best excuse I've ever heard now. Like, I'm sorry I couldn't buy a retina projector. Alright, so you guys are sure this is Glen, right?
They're just 2 pointers to the same person.
Yeah, nobody wants to take a risk. If you had followed, you would have known that Glen wasn't there at that time. So this is Ken. But what we have now isn't Ken because it was yesterday. So let's start with the first speaker of today. So we said keynote of today. My very dear Australian friend, but in the meantime, Dutch friend almost. Drew McCormack. Sorry?
Nothing.
What? Say it again.
That's the Dutch to the left-hand side.
Alright, so this is kind of a tour around the world. By the way, speaking about Australia, I have to thank the 2 most far guys in the world here, which is our Australian guy, where's Brett Percy, thank you, all the way from Australia. And we have Mike from New Zealand. Where are you? Mike from New Zealand. So guys, all over the globe. I mean, now I really need to go to the conference in Australia or in New Zealand. Alright, we change countries and we go to France with Zino, Zino from Paris. And the next one, whatever ethnic name, Glen. By the way, it's funny because who would you guys pronounce that last name?
Asperslag.
And like for years, like for 7 years, I thought them Asperslag. Up until they pronounced their own name in the video like months ago and they said Asperslag. And I was like, what? There's a GH in there.
Asperslag.
Yeah, Asperslag.
Yeah, the cheese.
Alright, so, and now the next one, right from Germany, Martin Wittler. I told you it was going to be with J's and juicy J's and, what did I say, juicy J's and juicy bits, whatever. Yeah, so, Jason Harris, you have to come here. Come on! So basically, Jason, while you were pretending to work yesterday evening, we had a very interesting panel already where I was playing some of those videos from that video back then. But I preserved all the bits where you speak for today. I figured all, yeah, exactly. I figured out, I was initially back in 2005 nowadays, so it's pretty interesting. Besides some comments about Objective-C's being obsolete by all French, where you asked them to explain the Objective-C being that 2005. So the very first question from this panel was...
So wait, are you...
take the mic. This is what they're for. And by the way, guys, come up front to the table. What are you guys doing on the
Are you actually going to show the part where I say that you should never use version control? Because if you are, I don't stand by this. I just wanted to be contrary. I just want to clarify right now.
I mean, things can happen. Okay, the very first question, and this is exactly the way it was asked back in 2005, was, what is the hardest part? This is where I put this on. I'm gonna be in trouble with Pepe about being a small Mac developer. And I think it's interesting because we have Drew here who gave a talk about indie Mac development. And the very first thing I'm going to give is I'm going to let Jason answer, but not Jason in 2012, Jason in 2005.
What is the hardest part about being a small Mac developer?
Becoming a small Mac developer.
All right, elaborate. What do you mean by becoming a small Mac developer?
Well, the transition from having a day job to supporting yourself is really rough. When I decided to actually go for it and try and do this for real, I got down to where all of my credit cards were maxed. My bank balance was $5. All of my bills were a month overdue, and that's a scary situation to be in.
Has that improved?
Yeah, barely. So it's freaky, and actually deciding to try and do it is very, very scary. It's a tough call to make.
So the very first question is, has that improved?
Well, I'm not a small Mac developer anymore.
Okay, that answers the question.
But that said, I mean, what we were talking about there was Shapeshifter, which was my first project. And this is not typical, because that did fantastically well. And as Drew, I think it was you, Drew, that said you made $362 in the first month?
Yeah.
Shapeshifter made a little more than $362 his first month. So I don't think that I was typical with this. But that said, the volatility of being a small developer, a small solo developer, it is scary. It's freaky to know that you are literally just one introduction from an unknown company away from having to totally revamp your life. That is definitely freaky to know about. The rewards outweigh it, but it's definitely scary to be a small developer.
Yeah, actually, when I heard the question, I thought, what the hell am I going to say to that? But then Jason just said it in the video. I think the hardest thing about becoming a developer is exactly what I said in the talk, which is indeed bootstrapping, becoming a Mac developer. Yeah, once you are actually a Mac developer, it's not that hard, I guess. Maybe if you get Sherlock or something, but day to day it's not too bad. I guess the worst thing I have to do work with now is the App Store, just have App Store reviews. The last one finished a few days ago, 26 days. You've got 26-day review time and you're rejected. So another 26-day review time. It's pretty difficult to plan. So at this stage, I guess, the App Store review is the most difficult thing to me. I do, it's a small thing.
We both had our typical jobs working at big software companies, and we just kind of ramped up ECAM gradually as over a period of a few years. So when we finally quit our day jobs, it wasn't actually some big scary leap for us. It was actually pretty comfortable. We were already pulling in some good revenue, and we just had to hope that the trend would keep going up instead of down, and we'd be all set. So our biggest challenge, I feel, is keeping up with Apple. Apple just moves so quickly nowadays. It's different than just a few years ago. They're pushing OS updates since we deal with both Mac and iOS. we're getting a new OS update every 6 months or so, right? And that's a challenge for us. We can't just hang around and not update our stuff. We're constantly updating, and that's our biggest challenge.
Martin has probably an interesting take because he just like 6 months ago
Yes.
went from employee to full freelancing.
While I'm not an indie developer yet, I hope to be one soon, but to contracting work, I can add still a perspective to this, in that I think it's difficult to go it alone, in the sense of I don't live in a big city right now, I want to change that too. And so just working from home all day long and having been used to having colleagues around who were sometimes annoying because they were talking on the phone and I had to listen to that and I could not listen to it. I still realize now how much I miss them and how much I need some human interaction during the day. And organizing yourself, pushing yourself forward to do the things that you have to be done, even though you have the freedom not to do them, this self-discipline is really a big issue. And if you're not cut out for that, that can be a big problem, to basically force yourself to do things and plan time accordingly.
Zino is actually doing contracting also for a long time, right?
Yeah, my take on that is slightly different. I agree with that. All that you guys said is difficult, but it's the hardest part. And I've been doing that job for like 15 years now. Solo, never employee ever. Like I spent 9 months at Apple and then I left because I couldn't do it. I love working at home. I don't think it's a problem. The problem is you're indie. You're alone. The competition is fierce, even with your own friends, because here we're all among friends, but we're also competitors in a way. I mean, not directly, but some other person in that room could get a contract that I'd like to have, and we should all be able to make a living off it. But being indie versus being a company is that you lack the power. You're in competition, we're in competition between ourselves, but we're also in competition with huge names, bigger names. And when you don't have the reputation, when you don't have the contacts, when you don't have all that, it's very, very, very hard. But you know what? Passion, you do your thing, it's gonna work in the end. But the hardest part is that you know that you're in a business world, even though you don't want to, because you're an engineer at heart. You like your products, but you have to earn a living from it too. Sorry. And you have a whole new range of problems that you didn't have before. And that includes competition with people you actually like and unfair competition with people you don't like. And that sucks big time. But you know what? We all have what it takes to pull it through. It's just a matter of like, just, you know, doing it.
I should mention I like everybody, I love everybody.
I'm not
a single
I'm
person.
not saying that in a bad way. I like competition. Come and get some. But it is true.
Yeah. Just the one thing I want to add is that what pushes me to the limit of doing this thing is exactly this job not being stable and not having a secured job. That might be the case of everybody, but I like to be pushed to the limits, and that's why I put something like conferences like that. And when I started the conference, people told me, yeah, maybe it's not going to work, and my answer was, worst case, I lose a couple of €1,000. I know it's harsh to hear, but it's just, you go from experience to experience. But then again, it's easier in our case because this is a pretty cool industry, right? Where we're fine. I mean, whatever happens. All right, the next one is actually there. Okay, this was in 2005. Okay, this wasn't. Maybe it changed a little bit. So let's hear a little bit from back in 2005. That's probably one of the funniest parts.
I'd be interested in knowing if anyone on the panel here is willing to admit that they don't use version control at all.
I'm a little hesitant to admit it, but zip and DVD.
Why haven't you used version control?
24 hours in the day. I've just never gotten around to it.
And he's never had a major failure.
Yes.
When that happens, if you're a developer worth your salt, you're using version control. And I can't believe you're not. Yeah. And backing up, and DVDs, and zip files, and
you're buying the beer tonight too.
Remote. I mean, remote backup or whatever.
Am I going to get voted off the island?
Ooga.
So I got it a bunch.
So the last bit for those who don't understand that, Jason goes and says, "Am I gonna get voted out of the island?" And then that Apple guy who still works at Apple, by the way, goes ooga. But it improved, right? By the way, I think I remember asking you that question back in, I don't know, 2007 or 8 about version control or something else, and you gave me the exact same answer, which I found pretty actually accurate. It's like there's only 24 hours a day, and I couldn't get to it yet.
But actually that's not accurate, because when that happened, I was using version control. I just figured that there were probably a lot of people that were watching that didn't, so I thought that I'd just take the contrarian point of view. I totally do not support avoiding version control. If you are
even in 2005?
What?
Even in 2005?
Even in 2005, I was using it then. I was lying. I was not serious in my response. But I don't have Apple Care.
Yeah. So let's get back to Apple Care. So actually, Git, SVN, Dropbox, Zip, it's kind of a religion take. In the meantime, it's like Git or SVN. Really seriously, back in 2005, I can almost more understand that some people still were back in, I know guys here who have used for a long time CVS, right? Those two.
Still do.
Yeah, green guys. So what's your situation today, guys?
Well, since I said I still use CVS, I will go for it. It's not a religion. It's a tool. You use whatever is handy for the project at hand with the people you work with. You have to work on a military contract. They use some Perforce thing. You use it. You have to set up a new system, and you like Git better because it gives you access to SSH. You use it. Point is, you should be able to go back in time and see what's changed in your program every day, every week, every month. However you want to do it, just do it. But you have to have backup. That's about the extent of my religion towards that. I use CVS, SVN, Git, Mercurial, Bazaar, Perforce, Zip, DVDs,
SourceForge,
and my USB key,
SourceSafe,
and my USB key in my pocket. Everything works as long as you're able to get it back at one point because you need it.
Anything is good as long as you don't have to use SourceSafe. Yeah. Go ahead.
For me, this is a pretty easy question. I think 90% of the time I use Mercurial. I use Git on some projects, and I have tried to use Git a bit more recently because of its integration with Xcode. I thought I'd better give this a try. And I just hate the user interface of Git. It's the command line interface, just revolting.
You know there are tools for that, right?
Yeah, other tools that you can use on top of Git?
No, a lot of UI tools like...
No, yeah, I know that, but the command line is just awful. I mean, how do I go back to... How do I just dump my latest changes? It's like I have to Google that. So anyway...
That's why I don't use the command line.
Okay, well, I used graphical tools, but sometimes I use... the command line, and I find Mercurial it's very similar, but the command, the interface is a bit better, I think.
Glen, did you move from CVS? No.
We do have some projects in Git, but our older projects are...
Can I get a round of applause for that? Because, you guys don't know what it means for them to use Git, right?
It's a big deal. But yeah, all our older projects are on a CVS server, running at my house. On a mini, and every night it copies over to Ken's house, and that's our. It works pretty well. We do CVS on the command line.
I'm glad you have offsite.
Yeah, and the offsite backup.
You can use this one, right? Can we? Yeah. All right. No, I know in the meantime it's not really a question. It was just that it was very funny at that time, that video, and especially the answer. Believe Jason or not, that he was actually using that. Back in the days.
I think at the time I was actually using SVN, and now I'm using Git.
The cool thing though is, further back in that discussion in that video in 2005 is there's this guy from Apple that goes, if you're a serious developer, you should use version control, blah 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 blah. And if someone isn't using it, think about what the best way to convince him, to tell him to do it. And now I'm going to tell you one way, which is Will's way. So for those who don't remember who that is Will Shipley. And I asked him, originally I put another picture in this keynote, and I asked him, can I use this picture, can I use this video? And he said, yeah, the video, but not the picture. I lost 20 pounds in the meantime. So I found a better picture. And so here's all Will does.
So I got it a bunch faster, and I'm like, typing, I'm rewriting the code, right? I get a bunch faster, and I just...
By the way, I should mention, he's explaining that some guy asked him to look at his code, some other guy, during a conference. So he grabs the laptop and starts working on the computer, and that's what happens.
So I got it a bunch faster, and I'm like, typing, I'm rewriting the code, right? I get a bunch faster, and I just stub out the code, right? I'm just delete this, delete this, delete this. Here's what you want to do. Totally break it, give it to him, like, it's faster now, but you need to finish it. And the guy's like, well, you delete all my code. I'm like, well, yeah, you just look at what you had and put it in. He's like, no subversion, no version control, I just delete his code. I'm like,
well, this is a good lesson for you. You've learned 2 things today.
Work around it.
And then you work.
Yeah. So that's what you do with somebody not using version control. You delete all the code, and then he's going to learn 2 things. Yeah, I don't know if anybody can react on that. Sometimes it's I'm teaching iOS, and I've seen people not using version control. That still happens, and sometimes I guess some people just don't know it, so they don't know that you can actually. I mean, I couldn't work anymore with it, and the reason why I use Git, I don't know about Mercurial, but the main reason why I use Git over SVN, for example, is the line committing thingy. I will commit only lines. I think if I could commit characters, I would probably do that. I know it's wrong, but...
Since I haven't waited on yet, I use Git now and source tree most of the time. Before that, I knew about 5 commands on the terminal, but source tree is quite easy. And well, I would show that person one of my old projects that were started like 10 years ago or so, or 12 years ago, that have like 20 folders with dates and version numbers and with zips and so on in them. So that's the way I used to do it, and of course it's not feasible, but that was before I knew about version control. And yeah, I think it's quite easy to convince someone that this is...
I was going to say, if anybody wants to ask a question or react, just shout and show your hand, and then I'm coming with the microphone. Because the next one is actually an interesting one, is when you find a bug in Apple's code, then obviously report it. But what else do you do? And I'm first going to ask you and then show the video. What do you do when you work on some product, like your example of Cortex, which at the end of the day wasn't a good example to use because you found out you didn't have to rewrite your own frame setter. But what is your strategy when it's not your fault, besides telling your customer, which I guess is not a good idea? It's not my fault, it's Apple, wait for the next release or whatever.
That's exactly what I tell my customers.
Okay. Fair enough.
If I can switch the blame to Apple, I do. Nearly always.
But does it work? People understand that.
I don't know. I think it's better than saying it's your own fault. No, there's not much you can do, right? I mean, you try to work around it, and the trouble is with bugs and Apple is they, Apple have got a very limited bandwidth in terms of pushing updates to the operating system and whatnot. So they can't just replace core data in 10.8.4, right? So if there's a bug in core data, you're waiting for 10.9 at least. So you've got to report it, sure, you've got to let them know about it, but then you've got to find a workaround. You've got to find something else to do, because you are not going to get any quick response on that for maybe a year, right? I actually had this with the iCloud syncing recently, which was a bit of a nightmare. So I found in 10.8.0, the GM, iCloud syncing didn't work. Okay, well that's another year down the tube, right? So now you've got to start thinking, okay, I've got to look for something else. And that's exactly what I did.
There are other mics, by the way. Just grab the mics.
My take on that is it's problematic because since I used to work for Apple and I used to work with a lot of guys at Apple, if I know that a bug is definitely in the code, I probably know a path to the guy who can fix it, which means that then I will fill a bug report and send him a private email saying, here's the bug report number. Please look into it and tell me when it's going to be fixed. But I've also had bugs open since 2002. I think I still have a couple of these that will never get fixed. So, I mean, it's always complicated. As Drew said, you have to let them know because that's the only way. Do things. Just don't expect much from it because it might never get closed. And because strategically it's not important, because you're the only one who cares about it, because they have a lot of other things to do. They're working on a new technology that you know nothing about. So report it and then start working immediately on a workaround.
Yeah. Glen?
One thing I would add is once you realize a bug is not yours and that it's actually Apple's bug, that usually means that other people have got to be seeing this too. So now you've narrowed down the bug, start looking online and try and communicate with other developers because who knows, maybe they found a workaround that will save you tons of time. And we had that situation where once we found out there was a bug in QuickTime, and so once we knew what to look for,
It's probably your fault, right?
We found that we almost, as soon as we narrowed it down, we almost immediately found another developer that knew about this and collaborated on a workaround, and it was really successful.
Interesting take for you because you worked around before realizing you wouldn't need to work around.
Yeah, I mean, but that wasn't really. It was more of a problem. Okay, me justifying now that I had to spend hours and hours and hours of doing this. It's not like I had a customer in that sense, but I was important. But I guess from similar experiences, I would. I had this happen with an iOS app where I had to say it's a problem of the system, not of our fault. But you still have to be friendly to the customer because they don't know that. And also, I feel still a little bit of a sense that I have to be a little bit of an Apple's ambassador and not kind of talk down on the platform itself. You know, it's more like, you know, it's normal for computer software to have bugs, and an operating system has millions of lines of code, so there's going to be bugs. So please, I can't fix it, but you know, that's just normal and life, and we're trying to work around it. Just try to be friendly in all communications, and don't shift the blame on someone else if it's really your fault.
Before I let Jason answer, if anybody has a question about any of their talks, you can also ask it to every single guy. Right now, it's the moment. Jason, do you have a take on this? I mean, that's funny because the guy who made Shapeshifter, right?
Yeah, I definitely have a take on this. This is sort of terrible, but I don't file bugs with Apple anymore. And the reason is that it takes 2 to 4 hours for me to file a good bug report where I've reduced the problem and explained the problem succinctly, but in a way that the Apple engineer that looks at it can actually understand it. This is a significant expenditure of time. It's 2 to 4 hours for me to write a good bug report. Out of the probably 50 bug reports that I filed in my life, guess how many have been fixed? 0. What the fuck, Apple? Honestly, I don't know. So that's just wasted time. So I don't do that anymore. I don't bother filing bug reports.
You should file the bug reports under my name. They fix it.
Maybe if I use someone else's name, then maybe they would fix them. I don't know.
They go, oh no, not Jason.
That's the point. As far as talking to my customers when I have a bug that's actually Apple's bug, I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to go back and say, look, this is actually Apple's bug and I can't fix it. The customer doesn't care. The customer doesn't want to know what the problem is. The customer just wants it to be fixed. So as far as I'm concerned, there's no such thing as a bug that I can't fix. If there's a bug that turns out to be Apple's problem, I'll go into GDB and I'll reverse engineer what's happening, and I'll follow the code path through, and I'll see if I can find some way of manipulating the parameters where that code path won't be followed and the bug won't occur. If that doesn't happen, I'll swizzle out the method and write my own implementation. There's no bug that I can't fix. I'll figure out a way to get around it. I mean, providing, you know, that it's a serious enough bug that it's actually really a problem, I'll figure out a way to fix it.
Wasn't it you that submitted a bug to Apple where you had figured out that they were actually just missing a dereference in one of their functions? We had a bug with in their UVC driver that was affecting the webcam we were selling, and I was able to trace it down to the line of code way deep in the driver where they had clearly forgotten an ampersand or an asterisk, maybe. I forget which one, but the address we were getting back for the image was the pointer to the image. And so I just kind of, gently as I could, suggested maybe they should check for a missing dereference, and then they fixed it. So
this is actually most of the bug reports that I've filed too. I've said an assembly language offset whatever from the beginning of function whatever. There's an improper dereference if the parameter that's input is whatever x. And you can fix it by changing it to this statement at this offset, and they've never been fixed.
So, Jason, why do you think they don't fix your bugs? Is it just you just think?
One, two.
They probably do.
Honestly, I have no idea why. I really have no clue why.
They probably do.
There's another aspect of this I just feel like needs to be mentioned. You can tell me to shut up, it's perfectly okay.
Don't be shy.
But there's another reason to file good bugs, because in most of the world, when somebody wants to find out who you are, they look it up in Google. But when Apple wants to find out who you are, they look it up in Radar. And so if you are trying to get a job with them, if you are trying to get a favor from them, if they're trying to figure out if they're going to fix your bugs or not, they're going to look through your old radars. And if you wrote some pissy-ass radar 10 years ago, they're going to find it, and they're going to mention it. Or even worse, they're not.
I don't. This one, yeah. I don't know if you mentioned it, but Mike worked at DTS, at Apple Developer Technical Support, so you've probably seen a few bug reports. And,
yeah, I know, and they made me pay for every smart-ass bug I ever wrote. Yeah. Like, I had serious 10 years ago regret from that, where it's just like, if I had known you would be reading my bugs from 10 years ago when I was going to apply for this company, which I never thought would happen at the time, I wouldn't have been such a dick.
Did you ever read mine? Did you ever read my bugs?
Did you fix your own bugs?
Your bugs are actually not accessible from within Radar. It just triggers a big flag.
It shows the pictures of you on top of Yosemite.
I think they're just filed directly to dev null.
But actually, did you actually remember what you said back in 2005? Let's see, and then you will have the. So to the question, what do you do when there is bugs in apples?
Work around it.
And then you work around it. Yeah. Is, from what we've seen at least, is that it's often very difficult to track down exactly what the problem is. And you can know that there's a problem, but you can only spend so much time trying to figure out what it is before that time would not be better spent. If you know something is going to be fixed in 10.5, that's great. But if you need to release your software before the end of 2006, that's not going to help you very much.
And not only that, but if you wait for Apple to fix the bugs instead of working around them yourself, then you're forcing your customers to only use the most current version of the operating system, and you lose a lot of business by doing that.
I think forcing your customers to use the latest operating system is just a good idea in general. Market research I've seen says basically the people who buy software buy Apple software. So if you want to sell to people who have money, then go ahead and release to the latest version of the operating system, because those are the people that are spending money on the computers, and the rest of the people aren't. The first thing they're going to spend money on is Tiger, not your app.
Don't get me wrong. I'm not talking about forcing customers to stay on 10.2. I'm talking about not forcing customers to upgrade from 10.4.2 to 10.4.3.
DRM is kind of, it's...
Went back to the beginning. So one of the things that I heard was the upgrade, and it changed also a little bit since 2005, because back in the days, if you had a bug that in say 10.3 that they were only going to fix in 10.4, maybe you would have to wait like 2 years or 2.5 years or 3 years, I don't remember. Nowadays, from an iOS release to the other, it's a year. It's only 1 year.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. It's a bug. It cripples whatever you're trying to do, and you have a duty as someone who is paid for his work to make sure that it works fine. I agree with everything that was said, but at the same time, sometimes I will get a library in the hands of other developers, and I want them to give me bug reports. So as a courtesy to Apple, and it's just that because I don't expect anything from it, I don't expect it to be fixed at any point in time. That's why I work on the workaround immediately. But as a courtesy, and just letting them know, because if everybody in this room says, we all know about this bug, but no one says anything, and they don't fix it, it's on you. It's not on Apple. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I want to be clear. I mean, I think that people should file bugs. I think I should file bugs.
You're just tired.
I promise to try.
Yeah.
No, it's a waste of time.
Altwin has something to say.
I would like to add one thing. I mean, what's clearly has changed since 2005. Now we have Open Radar, and I think that's a great way. Basically, you had it on the slides. We cannot only file the bug with Apple, but we can publish it actually, and we can promote it on Twitter or whatever. And it's quite easy to dupe a bug that is already filed on Open Radar, and I think like that, it's possible finally to raise the awareness within Apple about a specific problem.
I'm going to go to you, Friedrich, in a moment, but just I wanted to say, and I'm going to go to you, Friedrich, in a moment, or you can go there.
Yeah, I just want to second the Open Radar thing. I mean, I do actually file bugs from time to time, and when I do, I always Open Radar them.
Okay, because there are two things. Open Radar is one thing, so Google for Open Radar if you don't know what it is, and the other thing which is on the slide is actually Quick Radar, which is an app that somebody put together and other people worked on it on GitHub, which basically allows you to put fastly. Because my main problem with filing a bug report is that just Radar sucks, like awesomely. Like it's the worst thing ever. It's the biggest shit in the world. And filing a bug report actually takes me hours, not because of reproducing the case, of trying to post the damn thing on their website, on their old web object, whatever that is. Go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question about duplicating bug reports. I mean, so I stumbled upon a bug, and I look through Open Radar and I see, okay, there's already a bug there. When I now file this bug with it, first of all, do I need to refile this bug? Does the number of filings for a certain bug improve the chances?
Unfortunately, it does, yeah.
Yeah, so that's the one thing. And the other thing, is it then enough to just say, well, this is a dupe of bug number so-and-so, and I don't need, or do I actually also need to build a test case and do a demo project, etc., and pour 2 to 4 hours into that?
No, you don't have to supply them a test case again. So that's totally fine if you just copy the same text from Open Radar. Maybe I as a courtesy to them, I just repeat the original bug number, and then in my experience, it's those are the ones that are immediately thrown back to you with it's a duplicate with that exact number. Actually, in a lot of cases, it's a different number because that was already a dupe of whatever.
I might add something very quick, and then
sure.
At DubDub this year, at WWDC, I was in the labs and I spoke to some random Apple guy, and I told him, please speak to, can you ask something to the guys who are responsible for Radar? Are they working on that? There is a Radar, by the way, which is called GTFO or something like that, Fix Radar GTFO, for a Radar asking to fix Radar, to fix bug report at apple.com. And the Apple guy told me they knew the problem, they were working on it. So my next question was, but are they working on a real desktop app, or are they trying to do some web thing? And he said, I think some web thing. And I told them, tell them to stop. You guys at Apple are good at making a lot of things, but web things, no, you're not good at it. So, but yeah, they're working on it. That's what I heard.
Yeah, but they've been working on it for 20 years now, so it's obviously not. I mean, if we broaden the question a little bit, to me, it's exactly the same question as, do you use a versioning system? Do you use a bug report system or not? And if you say, yes, it's a tool I find useful for myself, then you have to respect Apple's ones and other developers' ones and whatever. If you think for yourself the bug report is useless, then don't file bug reports. Who cares?
Jason, you might have to leave the island again.
Ooga, ooga.
I just had one comment about the bug reporting. If you've ever worked a job where you're one of the guys who come in and you dip into the bug bucket and you fix the bug that day, and they're tracking how many bugs you fix, you may be aware of the concept of low-hanging fruit.
if you file a bug to Apple that is low-hanging fruit, the chances are you'll get a reply very quickly. So if you have like a nitpicky thing that would take 5 minutes to fix, chances are that engineer, when he comes in the morning, wants to get a bug fixed right away, is going to do your bug quickly. So it's worth filing even the easy things because they're more likely to get looked at, even though you might think it's not significant and it's going to get ignored. If the developer can get a point on their chart that their boss is looking at,
Quick show of hands, because Jason stating that none of his bugs, is it really none, have been fixed?
It's
You're
not
lying,
really
right?
none. There have been a few.
Okay, because some bugs have been fixed, right? I mean, there's no way they'd never fixed any of your bugs, right?
There was one that had thousands of duplicates that got fixed.
Okay. Because
Do you have an idea how many bugs per day, month, week Apple gets? Roughly, in the thousands?
A lot.
I mean, it's a really easy thing to figure out. File a radar, get the number, and then the next day file a radar and get the number, and that's how many radars were created in that 24-hour period.
It's pretty
Because
fast.
every time you create a radar, it increments that number. The only catch is that if you create a radar and delete it, then those are also counted. So if there happens to be a really round number in there, it's not going to be an accurate count because Apple engineers have been known to create a bunch of empty radars just so they can claim like bug 1 million or whatever.
Yeah, so last I checked, it's about 100, at least 100 on minimal days, so 100 to 1,000 per day, so don't expect
Way more.
much.
Way more.
Yeah,
I mean,
don't
you can
expect
see it
much.
on Open Radar, it's pretty easy. So.
Don't expect much. That's the end of it.
No, but my experience is actually for frameworks that are quite new or quite like heavily worked on. When you file a bug on that, they get fixed pretty quickly. Especially if you're one of the if you're whatever in a first beta of an iOS release or so, where things are really in flux. My experience is at that time that's probably the best time
that might be true.
for bugs being fixed. Of course, if it's like beta 7 and
If
GM
it's not
is-
what?
Wait.
GM's.
If it's not iCal. But I mean, you're right, and because like a new product is usually manned by people who are passionate about it, that means that when they get a bug about their baby, they want to get it fixed. So new things, yes. And also, it also depends on the manager of that team or the people who work in it. Like I've had one bug fixed in less than 48 hours. It had to do with IRDA, infrared, back in the day. And that's because there's just one guy working on that and no one asks him anything any day. And then one day he gets an email, hey, I have a bug for you. And he's like, woohoo, a bug. And he fixes it, sends me an email saying like, in the next version, it's gonna be fixed. I'm like, yeah. But I mean, it's all a matter of person you're talking to and that's all there is to it. They are all developers. They get fed up with your whiny bug reports. They want to get the product as good as they can, but at the same time, they have a pair of hands and 24 hours a day, just like us.
So I have a question to the Apple insiders.
Outsiders, in the meantime.
Or outsiders or whatever, ex-insiders.
That's how they call them.
Who basically decides whether you get back the mail, please file a sample project? Who decides that? Is that first level or is it really the engineer?
Yeah, my projects are too complicated. They always have a sample thingy. But Mike, I don't know if you have a comment on that. I have no idea.
So my question is basically, who decides whether you get back that email? Please file a sample project. Is it the first level in the bug reporter team or DTS, or is it really the engineer actually?
The person who decides if they need a sample project is the engineer who's been assigned to fix the bug. The bug scrubber is generally not going to know to request a sample project unless it's something that they've been specifically instructed to get capture for. So generally speaking, it's going to be the actual engineer looks at it, say, I can't reproduce this, send me a sample project.
The trouble is, it's also the default answer when they don't understand what you wrote.
Yeah, that seems to me, because sometimes a file bugs or so, and I supply there's just one line of code that doesn't work, right? And they ask for a sample project, which is kind of a fuck you for me. I don't know.
Hey, you guys are developers. Just ask yourselves, how do you want your users to report bugs to you? You want details, lines, as much information as you can to reproduce the bug. See the talk yesterday on debugging. You want data and you want reproducibility. And that's what you want. So give that as much as well as you can and hope for the best, prepare for the worst.
One thing that hasn't been mentioned though is that once the bug is fixed, it doesn't mean by any means that it's yet released. I had a bug fixed. I think 10.7.4 brought a very nice bug with NS textured window. I know you shouldn't use textured window, but fine. Anyways, there was a bug in any app using a textured window in 10.7.4. I thought it was my bug, so I started working on it before I realized, oh, any other app has this bug. So I reported it, and I think they recently updated 10.7.5. And by the way, that was also, I was kind of afraid that they will never release 10.7.5 because 10.8 was already there. So I was afraid that they will never fix this in 10.7. They did it. They actually updated to 10.7.5 after, and they fixed the bug. But between the moment where they fix it and where it's going to be released, whoever decides if something is going to be released or not, because there is a slight chance. The Apple engineer at DubDub told me, oh, I'm not sure if we're going to see 10.7.5. And I was like, oh, okay. And that comes back to the you have to ask the guy to upgrade to 10.8, because they fixed it in 10.8, obviously, but not in 10.7.
Free for all.
Just, yeah, thank you. Any question? Yeah. Were any? Yeah. Yeah. Walk. Take change. Mike, you want to add something?
Oh no, I just have a funny sense. Yeah, if they want to ask questions, just ask questions. But
this might
Evening
have
at
been
Adler, I was in the audience
Oh,
of Evening at Adler, and that discussion on version control, and then Shipley made a statement, which was basically, if you're not using version control, you're not a real programmer. And that was when I started using version control.
Oh yeah, awesome. 2005 was an awesome year. The question? Go ahead.
Yeah, I got a question about to the indie developers among all speakers. I bought
Just take the mic like that.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I got a question to all the indie developers. My apps, I think, suffer very much from visibility, so nobody knows about them. And I would like to know what you as developers do about it. I bothered Drew about it a bit already, but I'd like to know tips from other developers too.
Any of you guys?
What was the question?
What was the
Nobody
question?
wants to answer. I can give my take, perhaps.
How do you get visibility?
I don't sell apps. I don't know.
I'm gonna quote Mike and Steve. You make great products, and then all comes for free. That's what they tell you.
That
I
doesn't
know.
work.
Go ahead.
So I think you have to get the word out somehow, right? And you need to work with the press. That's definitely, I think, one of the major things you have to do first, right? And of course, this is not easy. There are different resources to do that. I don't know how you are all doing it in the US or for the English-speaking press. There is a distribution service, or actually there are several ones or so. I'm working with PR Mac, probably one of the not well-known services for that. Results vary, I would say. So don't expect that it will have a huge impact, but at least it gets your app in front of journalists somehow. In Germany, there's a guy I can recommend. He's named Carsten Scheibe, who is actually an ex-journalist who writes PRs. So he would actually write your press release and then distribute it amongst his colleagues or ex-colleagues or whatever. So he's definitely a good guy. But I think that's something that's definitely important. Of course, in addition to building a great app that speaks for itself, but of course you have to get the word out somehow. And you have to build whatever your social network or social, like Twitter and Facebook community or so. And of course, if you start from scratch, that's even harder to do. But for that, I guess working with the press is definitely really important.
I agree with everything that Ortwin said. I would also add, there's a common misconception that people will build an app put it on the App Store, and that's how people will find my app. I always hear, oh, people will find my app on the App Store. Nobody's going to find your app on the App Store. As Ken mentioned yesterday, it's a warehouse. I mean, you are not going to be on the front shelf, and you really have to approach it with some old school techniques. Something we've had a lot of success with is at the various conferences we've met a lot of magazine editors and formed relationships with them, and gotten our software in front of editors of magazines and writers, like physically sit down with them and show them something, and that makes a big impression. And those relationships have continued through the years, and that's been something that's been really helpful for us. Also, we hear from bloggers a lot and podcasters who will do giveaways, and it's a great way for someone to talk about your app. I mean, people love doing giveaways, and if someone asks you, can I give away your software?
Blood, sweat, and code.
That's the only thing I worked, and you heard that a lot. Blood, sweat, and code. That's it. You just do it. You talk to people and work.
Yeah, it works really well. And so giveaways doesn't cost you a dime. They'll talk about your software for a few minutes, give away a copy, give away 10 copies, whatever, and that'll just at least get it out in front of people.
Also adding to that, I suggest, depending on what specific app you might have, not only think about the usual, whatever online magazines or blogs or so, like the well-known What Daring Fireball or so, right? Probably you won't get listed there or get linked there. Think about like specific verticals or so. Let's say you're having a whatever gardening app or so, then you would perhaps better be off talking with garden magazines, right? So that's, I think, at least a way to try to avoid whatever the problem that, of course, all these tech magazines, Mac and iPhone magazines, they get tons of requests, of course, and they, of course, cannot print or cannot work with everyone, right? So perhaps be innovative also in the ways you talk with the press or so. And of course, as you said, personal relationships always are better than just throwing whatever mails via distribution services at them.
We're gonna wrap it up. Just Jason, one comment and then.
Yeah, this is kind of a me too, but basically Drew said a lot of this. Basically find a niche that's underrepresented, and within that niche make a project that is just freaking kick-ass. Make something that defies people's expectations, and either solves a real need for them or delights them, makes their day better. But do something where people are going to be astounded by how well you solve that problem. And that gets you a lot of the way there. People do actually flock to things that are good, but not if it's just good. It has to be extraordinarily good for people to flock to it. So start off by doing that. If you can somehow build a community around your project, if you can make it so that there's a community where the entire purpose of that community is your project, then that's great. With Shapeshifter, for example, we had this giant community of people that were exchanging themes and producing themes and so on and so on. That community drove sales like nothing else. As far as building relationships with journalists, this is something that I've done a lot too, but you don't just build relationships with them, go drinking with them. Go drink whiskey with them. Go drink beer with them. Get drunk with them. Become friends with them. Tell dirty stories with them. And when you do this, it's a little bit cynical, but when you do this, they're going to be much more likely to review your product and to say good things about your product because they have this personal connection with you.
Because they're drunk.
Sorry?
Because they're drunk.
Because they're drunk, right. They'll say, it's the best thing ever.
It's like people buying kitchen yesterday. All right, we're going to wrap this up. One thing is, who has a decent camera, photo camera? Because nobody. You know why? You have a decent one, right? You have a right one. In 30 seconds, I'm going to ask you guys to come over all the way down, and I'm going to ask Pepe to do pictures of us all together. I should have done that yesterday because we were more, but because I want all you guys that were there, because then in like 30 years you're going to say, I was there. Yeah, so basically see you. For the people who still can, that I booked for about 20 people, and if more is coming, then we'll see how they can fit us. At Mar Isol, so go online. It's somewhere Südstadt. Go find the address. And in like 2 hours, live from San Francisco somewhere, they're going to announce this apparently longer thing. Talking about an iPhone, Jason. And we'll see that. And besides that, a round of applause for those guys and for you guys. And come on down. So thank you, guys. Thank you. Where's my hat?
And thank you guys too.
All right, get down on it. Let's make this picture. Good luck. Get cozy.
Yeah. Gezellig. Gezellig.
Speak it the French way, not the German.
Yeah, you guys all need to come to the front. I know my camera will not work.
Don't make it the Spanish way.
The Belgian way is including fries.
With mayo.
Yeah.
The problem is I'm tall. Right, I'm gonna do like this.
Yeah, there you go. Go lie on the floor.
Go lie on the floor. Yeah, like.
We're done with stuff.
All right, baby, come in there as well.
Objective-C. That'll be in Amsterdam.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. See you later for those, and for those who I don't see later.
I think so.
Yeah.